Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gosh, I'm getting tongue-tied. Welcome. Starting again. Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I'm your host, Ty Christensen. Give me strength to tear a man apart. And we've got Jordan Christensen on the pod.
Sadly, I don't have a quote for this one. What?
Are you kidding me? You're ashamed. Did you even
What does he yell at his commander? Don't leave me! Ah!
How about eat? And all the women are saying, hope he chokes on it. Those are feeding the guy at the campfire. That's what I was thinking. We've got Cameron Mickle on the pod.
They called me Tank Boy.
Call me Tank Boy.
I do remember laughing at that quote. That was really funny.
So
the
dumb.
best
They
is
called
at the
me
very
Tank Boy.
end. Dude, the best is just at the very end. He's like, hey, Tank Boy, I got something for you. I got something for you, Tank Boy. It's amazing. And we've got Sebastian back on the pod.
Kaput.
Kaput. Dude, holy crap. We are talking about The Beast. Also tag of War. I thought it was just called The Beast, but it's The Beast of War. This movie came out in 1988.
Well, there's two names for it.
There is two names
Yeah.
for it. This is like a foreign film, and they had to release it for American audiences, right?
It only
Or
hit
something?
like one theater, according to our guest, which this is a recommendation from Nick. Thank you, Nick.
Nick, thank you. Wait, are you sure it was from Nick? I thought it was from someone listening to the podcast.
Yeah, his name is Nick. You're thinking of the other Nick.
But not our guest, Nick.
No.
But, a fan, Nick. Nick, thanks for writing in. And I was pleasantly surprised.
Yes, Ty. Nick Albrecht isn't the only person named Nick.
No, I just thought you said, it sounded like Jordan said guest or something on the show, or I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe
did
I
I?
misheard
I
that.
might have. I don't know.
Yeah, you're like Nick from the show.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
you're like Nick from the show.
Oh, I
you
meant
did. I
to
guess
say
you did.
like a fan.
Yeah, a fan wrote in that we should watch this movie. We all watched it, and we were pleasantly surprised. This is a hidden movie gem, folks. This is a great movie. So let's get right into it. This movie.
Okay, we got two people that love the movie and then two people that have different opinions.
Opinions. Well, I'm excited to get into it then. So this movie came out in 1988. It was directed by Kevin Reynolds. Now, the only thing I know him from is
Count of Monte Cristo.
half of the Kevin Costner movies, Waterworld and the Robin Hood. But yeah, Count of Monte Cristo is something else that Kevin Reynolds directed. So
Masterpiece.
yeah, it got my attention. I was like,
One-hit wonder.
like this
Sorry,
director.
what?
I didn't know he did other movies. I really like this movie. So it was written by William Mastro Simon. That's a cool name. And it stars George Dunza. I can't say that name. Dzunza. It's definitely Russian. Jason Patrick, Stephen Bauer, Stefan Baldwin. Oh, Stefan Baldwin. Is that one of the Baldwin brothers, right? I thought I recognized him. It is one of it. He was also in Usual Suspects. That's why I recognize him. Give me the keys, you friggin'. Do you remember that? That's him. Don Harvey, Kavir Betty, Eric Avari, which I like. Samad's character. Do you guys recognize him from Mr. Deeds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious, dude.
I forgot.
That's what I remember him from, and from The Mummy. Those were the only two movies I remember him from.
Yep.
But he'll always be that guy from Mr. Deeds. That's like super weird. And it's got Chaim Jaffe and a few others. So
Jaffe.
Jaffe, hey, my man, Jaffe.
Yeah, Ty, you sure don't want to try on the name of Yitzhak Neham?
Gesundheit.
Hey, yeah. What's wrong with you, Cameron? You need to
sorry.
be a little more conscientious, okay? So we're getting into this movie. What was it like watching it for the first time? Oh, wait, real quick. Before we get into that, I just want to give a quick rundown of the plot. A Soviet tank and its warring crew become separated from the patrol and lost in an Afghan valley with a group of vengeance-seeking rebels on their tracks. I mean, vengeance-seeking rebels, it makes it sound like, I don't know, they're the bad guys. If you watch the carnage that ensues at the very beginning, they're completely justified in taking out this Russian
Yes.
tank. I mean, men, women, children burned alive. Like, it's crazy. So let's get into it. What was it like watching this movie for the first time and rewatching it for the podcast? Why don't we have you start, Jordan?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it was a recommendation by one of our fans. Sorry, not guest. I love this movie, guys. Like, at first, when I first started, though, I watched the first, 10, 15 minutes, and I'm like, man, this movie's boring. And
He's like, we have terrible fans of the show.
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that. We love you. What I did
said
say...
Nick. Terrible taste in movies.
No, what I said, I'm like, man, this is kind of boring. I think we should just talk about it at the end of like another episode. And Ty's like, finish the movie. And so I finished the movie, and now I like absolutely love it.
I said, oh, finish the movie. That's how I said it too.
King Wasabi. I love this movie. I loved it so much I saw it a second time, guys. This movie's great.
You have
Like,
problems. Wow. You need mental
Dude.
help.
Dude, I'm all about Tank Boy, dude. That guy, he's going to go down as one of my favorite movie villains for a long time.
Yes, like Ty, I loved your comparison. Moby Dick. Oh, totally. Just
Captain
like
Ahab,
Captain
just
Ahab
obsessed.
stuff,
Yeah. Moby what? And Cameron, what was it like watching it for you and for the first time and rewatching it for the pod? I think you've only seen it once.
So yeah, watching it for the pod was my first and will be my last. I watched the first like 35 minutes, 45 minutes, and I was like, goodness gracious, this movie is slow as shiz. I'm like, why are the Russians speaking English? Why are the like Iraqis?
Yeah, that kind of
speaking
threw me
their
off when they said they were Russian. I'm like,
Then why are
I'm
they
so
speaking
confused.
English?
I'm
Yeah,
like, why are
I
they
was like-
speaking perfect English?
So that was a little strange, but then it was the same thing. Jordan and Ty were like, you gotta finish the movie. And I was like, okay, I'll finish it. Goodness gracious. And then, finishing it, the second half is definitely crescendos, but at the same time, it crescendos from crap. But it's still like a solid movie in the second half. But
Crescendos from crap. How about that, folks?
I disagree. Highly disagree.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I mean, to be fair,
It's a slow start. I'd say it's a slow. Well, I mean, but slow is maybe a wrong
watching
word
all
because
these
it starts off
Afghani
with
women
people.
and children being burned alive, it's kind of slow paced for me. Guys, I was crying in the first 11 or 12 minutes. I shed a tear. I was like, I'm not heartless. Like, gosh, watching this carnage. Like, and I remember thinking like, oh, this might be outdated, but they had some impressive camera work that made me think of Stanley Kubrick in Full Metal Jacket. Like the close, when he runs up to the tank, like, it's unreal. I don't know. I got chills, man.
See, I got the reverse. I got really cheesy vibes, like when they were crushing him. I just thought it was so cheesy. I'm like, this is something Jordan would do in one of his movies.
Oh, but
That was my
the feet,
favorite
like
part.
pointed straight up. Yeah, the feet pointed straight up. Dude.
Yeah.
I couldn't,
I'm like,
just couldn't let him to the
what?
side. He had
Yeah,
him pointed
just had it
straight up,
so he
dude.
could just crush
I
him.
noticed
No.
that too. I was
No.
like, oh, he's putting his feet up. He's not even struggling. He's like, do it. Do
Do
it.
it.
Take me.
Dude,
I know.
dang.
And then when they show that squashed
I love-
meat sausage later on the film, I was dying laughing.
Yeah, and then see, it reminded me of like Joker and Batman, like enjoying getting beaten. I'm like, what the fudge, man? Like his smirk on his face. I'm like, that's the face of a serial killer.
Yeah.
I love that Sebastian texted me too. He's like, I'm only liking one part. Can you guess which part it is? I'm like, the guy getting run over by the tank. He's like, yes.
Well, so like, I was watching it, and normally I try and think like, how does this hold up, right? Is this
Yeah.
going to happen? And so the guy's there, and he's pissed that this guy just blew up his friend's tank. And I'm like, okay, what would I do if I just captured him? I'm like, put the fear of God in these people. You run them over with the treads right in front of them. And then they did it, and I was like, yes, finally. So I was happy to see some horrible things happening because I could see that happening in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sebastian's the kind of guy, when we were playing the Walking Dead video game, he's like, where's the option to give her the axe? Because they're like, here you go, take the gun. Nick's like, Sebastian's like, no. Like,
I keep the gun.
Why can't I just axe her, save the bullets?
Make it more gruesome. Make it prolong it if you can.
I'm like, you're so inhumane.
Slow and torturous. No, Nick, or not Nick. See, you got me saying.
I know, I keep saying that. I
we're all
know, I'm
saying
sorry.
Nick. Sebastian, I think it's so funny because to your credit, like when I'm watching movies, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm like vigilante justice, all for it, you know. And then I'm like, well, not in real life, you know. I clutch my pearls. I'm like, oh, I would be so offended if this really happened. But in the movie, I'm like, blood, kill, yes, get revenge, you know. And so this movie is like, it's all of those things because I found myself struggling to figure out who to root for, you know, for a long time. I was like,
Yes.
I don't really know who our protagonist is, but then like eventually it became clear. I'm like, oh, like this is his story. I always thought it was. Well, I don't know. I was going to ask you guys. Is it Tank Boy?
We're
What's
talking
his
about
name?
Iron Man floating off away at the end.
Yeah, dude, being carried off like all serene like.
I'm like, what the
he
fuck?
ascended, dude. He learned what he needed to learn.
But
he helped.
Ty, is he an angel or a devil?
I don't know, dude. I was going
You
to
know,
ask you.
I honestly, I thought that was the best line of the whole film.
Yeah. Which one? Are you an angel or the
Yeah,
devil?
I really thought, I was like, ooh, that's a perfect way to sum up the whole thing. So for me, watching this, I had just finished recently listening to a podcast by Dan Carlin. He does hardcore history, and so this specific one is about the rise of Japan and what the war was like, World War II in the Pacific, and just like all the horrendous things happening. So then watching this and being like, initially starting off with, which is essentially a war crime, burning people and children alive, and then running a guy over with a tank, I'm like, oh, this happens all the time. Like, this isn't new. But then it sets up your individual character, right? And you're like, man, that's a pretty nasty tank driver. And you're like, why is he so mean? And then you've got your good guy who's the driver, and he's like, I don't want to do it. But then, of course, he's also the one driving the tank that just slaughtered all the civilians, and he didn't care about that, so what's running over one more person? You know, like, who cares? So I found that the film was not necessarily...
Well, but it makes it more personal when it's like he's right there looking directly at you in the eyes kind of thing. Like when you're shooting, blowing people up from a distance, it's a lot easier than like looking somebody in the eyes and then having to kill them.
I think that's the whole point of the film, is it wasn't really... It's different from normal films where it's like, oh, the FBI, this big, or the government versus one man. It was like, no, this individual has a single individual
very
thing
personal
against so-and-so, and this individual hates so-and-so.
I like that a lot because, again, you don't get the cavalry. You almost have a moment where the cavalry is going to come, but then due to something that comes back into play, the poisoned water hole, they don't, right? Like, you keep thinking, like, oh, like, they're going to bring in all these other characters or something's going to change, and I love it.
Can we address the worst captain of all time, though? Not letting him get on that
we're staying with the tank. He's like, I didn't drive it all the way here to leave it. Yeah, he's like, you come back for us.
But, like, on that, coming off of that podcast about Japan, and it's like, then knowing his backstory of Stalingrad, it's like, absolutely, that's the type of person that, even though it's totally ludicrous and absolute madness,
that's something
like,
he would do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was like, I
it's not out of
totally bought
character.
it. I was like, okay, yeah, this is happening.
Yeah, love it. And it's so great, too, because they set up these characters and you understand their relationship to each other. At first, you think it's one thing and then it's another. Like I really like Samad's character. I thought he was so good because the tank lieutenant, the tank instructor or whatever, he was just like, he did not trust Samad this whole time. And then, like, when he has him go to the watering hole, to wade out in the water to see if it was stone or sand, and then he just blows him away in the water. It was, like, just horrific. Like poor Samad. I was
monster, dude.
like, why did he kill him? I just think it was really good at establishing, like, yeah, there was no heroes in the story, and all the other guys were, like, they were horrified by what he was doing, by these war crimes. And then, like, I love the ledger that he would have, and he's like, write it down. He's like, you didn't see any of this. You're not going to report any of this, And he's like, I'll have you arrested if you write any of this stuff down.
Treason,
so it's like, the guy's being threatened, for treason. And it was like,
He's like,
it was a really
murdering
moral
your
dilemma.
own is treason. And you're like,
Exactly.
fudge.
And I thought it was interesting because for the Russian, he couldn't believe Samad. He didn't trust him. He never did. Even though Samad was their interpreter, he was there telling him all the customs. He told him about the code of conduct, what was the Nanawati or whatever. Nanawati, it's like, if you tell them this word, they're going to treat you like, even if you're their enemy, they're going to respect you and nurse you back to health. I thought that was really cool. Like, again, even with these despicable people, he was part of the raid that ruined this guy's town.
I will say, though, with
They showed mercy.
With such a simple plot and not a very complex story, I mean, that was a dead giveaway, like, right at the beginning of the film. I was like, oh, they're going to get captured, and he's going to be like, parlay! And it's going to be just like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a secret word. So pirates took it from the beast of war. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And our nerdy captain that gets captive, he's like the not so charismatic,
Jack Sparrow?
Jack Sparrow, I guess.
I would never compare the two, but okay.
More like Elizabeth, yeah. More like Keira Knightley. But at the very end, I loved it, dude. Tank Boy, I'm here for you, Tank Boy. Like, he kind of grew on me because at first I didn't like that guy so much. And then I'm like, you know, he finally stood up to his commander. He's like, there's no winners in a rotten war. I thought that was a good line, too. I really like that line. But anyway, I think that's really funny that you called it, Sebastian.
Walk
yeah.
away with no boots. I was like, oh, ow,
Oh.
ow.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So,
at the time, he was just like, take him because he didn't want to die.
Afterwards,
but,
immediate regret.
Oh.
Immediate.
Yeah.
I thought, so let's say two of our favorite things, and then we'll get into some nitpicks. So why don't you start us off, Sebastian?
To you and Sebastian about the first time viewing.
Oh, sorry. Right. Well, I thought Sebastian kind of did share what he thought, so I just, without asking him, but if you want to share your thoughts about viewing it for the first time, Sebastian.
No, that was it.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was personal stories rather than generalized story. But the only thing that really pulls you out is they did a great job of putting you in the zone where you're like, oh, they're speaking whatever they speak in Afghanistan. And then all of a sudden some British guy is like, I'm the Russian. And you're like, you're not even trying to do an accent. Like, this film, if it were to be dubbed by Russian people, would be 10 times better.
Yeah. Yeah, it did take me out of it for sure. Because at the very beginning, I was immersed.
Just at the beginning, it was jarring.
Like, I was immersed in it, but then all of a sudden, English is spoken. I was like,
I
these Americans? That's what I thought.
Yeah, because I
wait,
couldn't tell.
when did this
I thought they were
happen?
Americans
I
too.
watched the beginning, and then they were talking about how the Russians were invading Iraq, and I was like, okay, so it's
who
Russian.
are the Russians?
and then they just all were speaking English, and I'm like trying to be like, are these guys? And it wasn't until he said, oh, in Stalingrad, and I'm like, okay, there's no way this dude's a freaking American. Like, he's got to be Russian.
Like, where's Stalingrad?
Yeah, I'm like,
is that New Jersey somewhere? I love it, dude. Love it. And it's so funny, too, because, like, that did take me out of it. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Two of your favorite things. Why don't you hit us off, Sebastian?
Well, the tank, right? Crushing the guy. I was like, yes. But I didn't like the guy
murdering someone.
The guy that they grab to drive over. He's just like doesn't even fight it. He's just like, yep. And he even like squares up his feet. He's like, yep, you can squash me right from my toes all the way to my head. He's not even like trying to spread his legs out or get away. I'm like, who does this? Like, this is not life or death. Like, he's just like, please do this. But I don't know. Maybe he's got 40 virgins waiting for him or something. So
yeah, something we don't know about.
That's right.
And then the other thing I liked was just semi towards the end. You're like, are you an angel or a devil? I was like, yeah, that really sums up the whole film.
Yeah. Really well.
I like that. Excellent. So, how about you, Jordan? Two of your favorite things.
Ooh, I'd probably be still in somebody else's. Could Cameron go first? Because I know he doesn't love it as much as me. I can gush about so many things.
Yeah, go ahead, Cameron.
So
why don't you share two of your favorite things?
Jordo?
I know, but that's why I'm gonna see what you say first.
So my first favorite thing is definitely the final shot. I thought was very beautiful, especially kind of closing with the music. I felt like just kind of, especially kind of with kind of what Sebastian talked about the message of are you angel or a devil. And I just kind of felt like that was just very symbolic because I felt like he was there, he saved them, and then he like left, and I thought it was like very symbolic.
Yeah, to go play for the team again. Yeah, for the Russians.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey Cameron, you could say he's kind of like when he does the cross, it's like Zack Snyder's Superman.
Sure. My second favorite thing is I just kind of like the whole dilemma of like whether or not like kind of what we talked about, like who you're cheering for. Because I always think movies like this are super interesting. It's kind of like Parasite, where it's like at first you're like, oh, I'm obviously cheering for these poor people, but then you're like kind of like, you know, they kind of like might be worse than the rich people. Like they're kind of terrible people. And so like that dilemma, and kind of just like there aren't very many, especially I feel like in history there's not a lot of heroes in war, and it's just such a complicated time and there's complicated decisions that like unless you're in that position, I feel like it's unfair to judge from an outsider's perspective, because it's like you don't understand all the circumstances and everything that's going on. But I think it's kind of interesting of like there are no true heroes in war, and it's like you got to do what you got to do to survive.
Love it. Jordan, how about you? Two of your favorite things.
I love this movie, and I mean, right off the get-go, the music that you're introduced in, like, love this music.
It was pretty serene. I was surprised at how it did elevate and enhance the movie. Kind of reminded me of Blade Runner for some
Yeah,
reason.
that's
actually put that
totally
in my
what I thought.
notes,
I thought of that in Manhunter. I like the slower paced feeling to the film.
The landscape was really
Yes.
pretty too, even though it's desolate in a desert. It just
The plot kind of reminded me of Mad Max.
otherworldly.
Fury Road.
Yeah, I also put the movie Fury, but obviously just spending so much time
Yes.
in the tank.
So I
it
was
just
gonna
reminded me
say
of
this
Fury.
is like Fury, except it's good. But I'm
Jordan, Fury is 10 times better than this piece of shiz.
Oh, that's.
I totally disagree.
Watch
but
it again,
anyways,
you monkey, dude. Last time you saw it, you were like 3 years old. Gosh dang.
No, again, Cameron, it's always
Yes,
going to
because
be
you guys watched it after
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
the
I'm
night-
very aware. I've heard the story 4 billion
Okay,
times. Just
yeah.
fetching rewatch the movie.
Jordan just has a problem of differentiating between what's entertaining and what's good.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I would agree. This movie seems to be more entertaining, and Fury may have some other element. But I'm
No,
torn.
Fury would be entertaining,
Yeah.
not necessarily good.
Oh, interesting. There you go. That's a good point, because I have a hard time. I just compare every movie to Saving Private Ryan, and they usually don't hold up. It's like when you watch Saving Private Ryan, you're like, oh, I don't need to watch more movies because
You need to watch The Patriot, Ty. You freaking bum. Can't believe you haven't watched that. Disgrace, dude. Can't believe I'm related to you. Call yourself a patriot of
well,
our
Sebastian,
country.
I actually thought you were gonna like this movie more because
If you call yourself an American,
Yeah,
if
for
there's
real.
anybody I know that watches more war movies on this planet, it's you. Like, I just never seen somebody that just like essentially like gobbles up and just eats any information you can about war. Just,
Yeah, no, I love it, man. Yeah, it's just sometimes they're good because it's like, oh, it's real, right? Like Saving Private
interesting.
Ryan, like people watched it in theaters and were like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was there. Like the PTSD is coming back.
yeah.
And, and then there are films like Fury where it's like, it's World War II, but, the average age of the soldier was like 22 or like 19 or something, and like they would have been long dead and all sorts of other silly things like that. But it's just entertaining, right? Like it didn't happen, it's not real, and so you move
Kind of like
on.
Inglourious.
Yeah.
Changing of history.
that
and
might
then-
be real. We cannot confirm nor deny whether that was real.
Well, last thing I wanted to say, I love to that, like Ty or Cameron said, the crescendo of this
From crap, yeah.
psycho leader. Like I love somebody that just lose it. Like they're so driven by pride and power, and it's just like the scene where they're like they literally could have got on that helicopter and left, or whatever that is called.
So to that point, that podcast I brought up by Dan Carlin, Hardcore History, he actually talks about something, the difference between Pacific War veterans in World War II and the European War is that the Europeans, like if an American World War II vet goes to Germany, they're like, oh, hi, hello, they're fine. They don't have any grudge against the Germans. You talk to one who served in the Pacific War, and they hate the Japanese. They hate them.
Interesting.
And when you hear about this stuff that happened, I mean, it's savage, like, just listening to the podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, like, even me, like, I don't...
True evil, brutality, right? Yeah.
Well, like, not even just that, like, the people were so, like, just caught up in the, what they had been taught by the government for so long, that the Western people were evil, and so they would commit atrocities, tell the Japanese, that's what the Americans are going to do. So before they would do it to the Americans like, you guys are sick. So the Americans would do it right back to them. And so that's why if you look at the numbers, there's almost no prisoners of war in Japan because they couldn't take it because one guy would whip out a grenade, and so the Americans are like, just shoot him. Don't even bother. Don't even try. They come out of the cave, blast them. If they don't come out of the cave and you're offering surrender, just throw a grenade in there and then blast it with a flamethrower. So like
because they would suicide
Yeah,
bomb
so
us,
That's
right?
because, like, I think Hacksaw Ridge did a good depiction of that. Like, they come out with the flag, and then the guy whips out two
Yes.
tomahawk grenades and just tries to chuck them at him.
Exactly. So just like that, and so then you imagine something similar, maybe not to that extreme, but for the guy, the captain, right, the leader, why he hates this Muslim guy so much. And it's like, he's never going to forget, even though that has nothing to do with Stalingrad, but like, right, he's just doesn't like the enemy.
Yeah,
And
anyone who's
so-
not from the home country is the
Yeah,
enemy.
it doesn't. At that point, when you understand the captain, nothing else has to make sense because it makes sense to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, and like I said, I mentioned obsessed, like I drew the comparison between Captain Ahab, like at the expense of his own crewmates, you know,
Yeah.
right? Like they're manning the ship, right? In Moby Dick, this story about chasing this whale. And then they're like, we're going to die chasing this whale. Like we want out. And that's what he was doing. Like they literally had salvation. They're aboard a helicopter to leave, but he's like, oh, we're leaving without the tank. Like we're not going to come back for it. Like they said they'd blow it up, so at least they wouldn't get their hands on it. The enemy, the Afghanistan wouldn't get their hands on it. But he's like, that's not good enough. You know, he needed his tank back out of there. So it is remarkable. I think my two favorite things do stem from the two. I would argue the two protagonists. One is, I can't remember his name, but he becomes Khan, and he's going to be the leader. He's now the leader of this group.
Yes, I love seeing it from both sides. Love
Yeah,
that.
exactly. There was an arc for both. I thought it was really cool that Khan was like asking him, like, I don't know if I'm fit to be Khan, and he's like asking that question.
Did you think of Jack Ryan at all, Ty? Because I loved Jack Ryan kind of showed it from the terrorist point of view. Like you got to see kind of their life a little bit.
Yeah, like, and they've been doing this a lot lately. Where like I think of like in the Avengers, they had like Quicksilver and his sister, the Scarlet Witch. Like Tony Stark's missile came in and like destroyed their home and killed their family, and it's like, oh, that was Stark's weapons. That was the reason that hate Stark. You know, there's like a direct through line. This happens a lot where they like to paint America as the bad guy, but in this one, it's like Russians and Afghanistan's, and they're on full on war, obviously, but like this is such a private story. Like Sebastian said, this is so independent from everything else going on. It's like this poor village. It made me think of Santo Poco in The Three Amigos. It's like this poor, tiny little village that's like not even like there for the war. They're like out in the middle of goodness knows where.
Yeah, I love it. It's a side story.
Yeah,
Can I
it's
have
a
your
very,
watch when you are dead?
And so I liked that, and then I also liked his the Obsessed Commander's arc, which was just never abandoning ship, always prejudice against the traitor. He called Samad the traitor because, again, of his religion, because of who he was deep down, even though he was helping the Russians, interpreting and leading them to point out the enemies and stuff. So I thought that was really interesting that he just never trusted him. He called him a traitor, you know, and that was great. And then obviously just the fight over the tank. I don't know why it made me think like my favorite tank use of a tank in a movie was probably Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I don't know
thought
why.
of that too.
I couldn't help but think of that image of just Indiana Jones riding up, you know, side by side the tank. But this was so exciting that they used the tank in this movie a lot, and it was exciting. It was really cool to see pulse pounding action, like at night, the scene where the deer are around at night and they just blow all the deer away. And then, and again, misunderstandings. The Afghanistanis, they show up and they're like, they just kill mercilessly, right? They're like, look at all these dead deer. And they're like, they didn't realize that they thought that it was the enemy and they were shooting all the animals because they thought they were the enemy. So I thought that was interesting. Again, it's like a misunderstanding. It's like each one of them don't fully understand and they're not empathetic toward one another. So they're always going to have like this conflict because they're not willing to meet eye to eye.
What about the Holy Fireman, though?
So
that was when I turned it off for the first time. I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore.
I don't even remember the fireman. I don't even know what that is. Like, did he catch fire?
The guy just dancing around the fire for some reason.
Oh,
and he's like, hey,
that's
there's tracks
right.
over there.
Yeah, he's like, go take down
Yes.
Goliath with the Goliath tracks. I'm like,
yeah, exactly. I love the traps they were leaving for each other. It reminded me of Behind Enemy Lines, where it was just like constantly booby traps, one for the other. Like they left a missile there and they put a grenade underneath it, and then like leaving the guy tied to a rock with a grenade under his neck.
So stupid.
It was needless.
Okay.
It was
I
so
loved
ridiculous. The grenade like rolls down his foot, blows up the coyotes. I was like, what?
Everything
like,
about the grenades killed the movie for me. Just left and right, everywhere. So, well, so like the Taliban, Afghanis, I'm like, racist Americans here. They're all the same.
I said Iraqi like 3 times. So
Yeah, so this Afghanistan group of people are like, yeah, an RPG. That's great. We can take down the tank. And it's like, RPG, rocket propelled grenade. So as far as I know, there's not really a difference. Just one you can shoot from a long distance, and the other you can throw as far as you can throw. Well, guess what? You've already thrown like 4 grenades at the tank, and not even at it, like on the thing. And grenades do nothing in this movie. One explodes right next to his head, underneath the tank, and he's fine. I'm like, no, you're all dead.
No, that
Every
one guy,
single
his
one of
face
you.
got like blown off.
Oh,
wasn't
he
it?
got like a piece of shrapnel. He had like a scratch. No, everyone within 10 feet would be like completely dead. And there was like 4 grenades right next
Did you
to
laugh at that one quote, Sebastian, when he's bleeding? That totally reminded me of you when he's like, he's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "It's just a scratch," because he's just hit by that shrapnel and his legs bleeding.
No, but then later the guy with the bandage on his head, the bandage is like wearing thinner and thinner. Till eventually I'm like, why does he still have this on his head? Like, it just looks like he's wearing like a thong. And I'm like, why is this still, like, it's not holding any bandage to his head anymore. It's just there. And I'm like, take it off, please.
Maybe he was becoming Afghan.
That's
gosh.
terrible. So bad.
Yeah, when he stole his like turban or whatever to throw it under the thing, I'm like, that's probably really disrespectful, but I mean,
I thought
by
the
any means
same thing.
necessary.
Oh yeah, he takes it off his head and then lights it.
He just grabbed it off his head and was like, give me this
I was
shit.
expecting him to be mad, and the guy's like, oh, I don't care.
It's like, whatever.
Yeah, he's just like,
He said the
"Oh,
word,
just
so
use
he's
my,
okay.
like,
He can do
my-
whatever he wants."
Yeah,
I had the
you just
funniest
use
moment with this
you just
movie,
use
guys.
my freaking like turban as like a Molotov, but you know that's fine, I guess. I was like, what?
I love when the women show up and they're like, women, turn your grief into stone, and they start throwing rocks at the guy while he's lying there tied up. He's like, God, stop! And they're just pelting him with rocks. I'm like, they're gonna stone him to death. I thought that was great. And then he thinks of the word nanawati or
Yeah,
whatever.
but they don't
and
care.
So they
They don't care. They just keep
The
doing
women
it.
don't stop. Yeah, that's what I loved about this movie. Because again, I was thinking like, okay, if the movie was made today, they'd have this village be super woke. They'd be like, oh, like we respect the woman's grief and we're going to allow them to take out revenge. Instead, they're like, women, get out of here. They're like, leave. This man has said the word, the nanawati. We have to respect it. And the women are like, with the code, man. Like, I want to kill this guy. And at the very
They were
end,
bloodthirsty,
At
man.
the end, they were bloodthirsty. At the very end, he's like, Allah, why have you forsaken us? And then all of a sudden the rocks explode from the canyon. They come tumbling down the mountainside. It was all the women. I was like, women empowerment. The women, the crazy women, they told to go back to the camp. Go back into the kitchen. They came back and they were like against their man's word. And they actually, when he calls out to Allah, he's like praying that God will deliver them and deliver this tank into their hands.
Turns out
And it's
God's a
the
woman.
women that come back. I'm like, that's a pretty progressive movie for me. Even though at the very end, the woman's like covered in blood. It's like
That's my kind of woman,
psychotic
just covered in blood. That was
covered
great.
in blood, yeah. I love that, letting Khan know that the 2 other Russians escaped because they stoned the other one or whatever, they murdered him with their hands. I don't know what
See,
they
I'm
did.
right there.
And then the other 2 escaped.
I'm right there with Sebastian
great.
where the grenades are so inconsistent. Like, he lets the one drop and it like barely kills that one dog and it doesn't affect him at all. But then on the like 30 seconds later, that the grenades fetching are like blowing off rocks like they're freaking like pillows. I'm like, oh my gosh, those things are getting launched by like the explosives that they had.
Yeah, well, and from my understanding, even those little pin grenades that they have, once you pull the pin, nothing holds that spring in. So the one they stuck behind his head, it's not going to stay there. That thing would have exploded in a few seconds.
Supposed to explode.
And instead it's like
Yeah,
10
I was
minutes
wondering
later.
how, because I thought the other grenades are the ones that you like to like lift up, but that one you
So
didn't,
the
right? Like-
American grenades or pineapple grenades have the lever that comes down, and it's
Yeah.
spring-loaded. So once you pull the pin, the spring will let go. So you can hold it as long as you want. So that would have worked. But this is like an older grenade where it's got a little stick, and there's like
yeah, and you just pull out the pin.
I don't know, like a piece of metal that's on the side. Once you pull that, nothing's holding it in. Nothing.
You don't you have like 3 seconds to chuck it?
I think it's more like 10, but
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe your viewers can tell us if we're wrong, but I don't think there's
Yeah,
a difference
let us
between an
know.
RPG.
I think you count to 3, Cameron, and then you throw. I think is the rule of thumb, right? You count to 3, and then you throw it, and it'll
Yeah,
explode
I
7
always thought it
seconds later.
exploded within I thought it was like around 5 seconds. So at 3 you're supposed to throw it, but who knows?
I don't know. You don't want to explode 2
Yeah,
seconds
I'm
away
pretty
from
sure.
your
I'm pretty
throw.
sure all doctrine on grenades is once you pull the pin, you throw it. It doesn't time doesn't matter because the enemy's not going to have enough time to react and do anything about it.
Right. Hopefully, right? You see that in movies where
Unless
they
you're
throw
playing
it
Call
back.
of Duty
My
and they
gosh,
can throw that
yeah.
ish back right ahead of you.
They roll the
In like point
Well, you
30
see, but you have a
seconds.
second to react. I never hit it fast enough.
Or you could be, Captain America and just dive on it and
But
be
in
like,
this
I'll
one,
take this, guys.
the grenades
I'll take
do
this.
nothing. So even if you were standing right next to it, like they were multiple times, so like they're underneath the tank, it landed right in front of him. Like the tank's not between him and the grenade. The grenade's like 2 foot
Right.
away from his face, and it
Right.
goes off, and he's
Explodes.
like, "Oh man, that was close." It's like, yeah,
And
really
he's
close.
bandit. Yeah.
Yeah, you have shrapnel in your face.
No, he wouldn't have a
Right.
face.
He'd be
There'd be
melted and
nothing left.
obliterated.
And so, like, the whole fact that the RPG is supposed to take out the tank when, like, 4 grenades didn't. So unless there's, like, a big difference between an RPG and, like, a grenade, I don't know if there is. So, once again, your viewers, someone who knows, can tell us. But, like, they already know it's not going to work. Except for the woman who had what I'm pretty sure was Semtex, which is like C4, right? Like she holds it up and is like, "We can do this," and I'm like, "Yeah, that would work." And they're like, "Get out of here, woman!" And I'm like, "Okay."
Silence, woman.
There goes your hope.
Get back in the kitchen. Other nitpicks you guys have, or I guess we can turn into quotes.
Yeah, I think just-
I don't have too many other quotes.
Well, for me, yeah,
but
just
nitpicks,
nitpicks. I
Cameron.
mean, we've already mentioned most of them with the language, how the Russians are speaking English, and then the grenades. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was a little strange how, like, every single one of the women were so bloodthirsty, and that, like, there wasn't a single one of them that was like, maybe we shouldn't. Because, like, the guys, they had both sides, but the women were just, like, portrayed as, like, the most bloodthirsty hounds I've ever seen in my life.
Well, but it wasn't the entire town. It was like, I don't know, what was it, 4 or 5 of them?
yeah, well,
so it was
there's
just a
must
group
have
of
I'm
them.
not
some psycho
surprised.
girls.
Well, think about it. Maybe this is wrong, but like, they're sort of suppressed in their own society, right? Then.
Yeah.
Sort of. Is a bit of an
Yeah,
understatement.
so I'm just saying it.
To be honest, from what I understand of it, and that's very limited,
But,
is,
so-
arranged marriages at 12
So
and
they're
13.
they're pretty suppressed,
That's,
and
yeah.
they are then, like, their children are murdered in front of them, right?
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
her husband is crushed by a tank in front of her,
Yeah, everything's
and
taken.
then she finds herself alone because all the men run away, and she's like, I can do whatever I want. And I'm like, absolutely, she goes out and murders that guy because what's he gonna do about it? Because he's not there.
Yeah, that's very.
Yeah, and they
that's
lost
very
their
fair.
livelihood. They lost their
Yeah,
homes.
they lost
everything. They have
Yeah,
nothing.
Exactly. And you know, like you
I
said,
know, but
in this
for
suppressed
them to-
society,
for-
it's like you can't obtain property. You can't hold property. Like your only option is to find another man to settle down with, and he
Like,
gets to tell you what
so
to do.
think
Like,
about
I know,
Taken.
but still,
Frank, go get revenge. That's probably the most fun they've ever had in
every
their
single
entire
one
lives,
to turn
dude.
into like the type of person that would stone a person to death. Just I don't know.
Well, but there wasn't that many of them. There was only like I said,
Well,
4
Cameron,
or 5.
Cameron,
like
you ever
seven.
seen
Cameron,
Taken?
you look at the
Taken,
Yeah.
we watch. None of us have any sort of special skills for people like you, right? But we imagine if that had happened to us, what wouldn't I do? Right? And we're
That's-
like, oh, I
that's-
would
that's
totally
fair.
do that. It's like, no, you'd like dive
Cameron,
off a
Cameron would
bridge.
get over our deaths pretty quickly, Sebastian. That's the wrong person to ask. He'd be like, yeah, I'll warn you guys some other time. Not right now.
the
Now's not the
fudge?
time. And Seek Revenge,
Why am I being-
I got a lot on my schedule.
I love how I
gotta
always
see if
get
I can get
portrayed
around
by
to
you
it.
guys as like a serial killer, a sociopath with no feelings.
No
They say
emotion.
that to me
No
all the
emotions,
time.
just blank, Karen. Not a single tear, just no remorse.
You guys portray me as like I'm Jake Gyllenhaal from Nightcrawler.
No, more like the Zodiac Killer from. Cameron's favorite movie? Anyone? Little red flags going up in the back of my mind. All right, so other nitpick, or no, let's get into quotes. You guys have any other quotes?
Yeah, there's not a ton of words said. in
Yeah,
this
oh,
movie.
I need
kaboom.
a woman.
tank.
Need a woman when he's like riding the tank.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. When he's on top of the tank, looked like
He's standing, he's straddling the tank, and that's when it pulled me out of the movie. He's just like, I need a woman. I was like, wait,
that
who
reminded
is
me.
saying that? It sounds like a cowboy. Yeah.
It sounded like Hot Tub Time Machine when it was like, I need that.
I feel so young.
Yeah, testosterone raging, just this male toxicity, it's just rampant. But I mean, I don't know. Like you said, it was a great way of setting up just your characters, the time they're in. These are war criminals just living high off the life of vengeance.
You know what I never get sick of? I
Yeah.
never get sick of people that don't know how to use a bazooka and it just like firing off in the wrong direction. Like I love stuff like that. Like when that Afghani was like trying to use the bazooka and he's like trying to figure it out and it fires while he's trying to figure it out. I don't get sick of that. That's great.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that. And I also really like the callback to the poisoned water hole because they go up to it the first time. One guy gets poisoned. They all didn't drink it. And he goes, I told you to throw the canister farther away. He left it right there in the water. What an idiot.
He might as well have left the sign.
But it was so funny. The Russians that flew the helicopter, they flew in. They
That
didn't
was
find the
hilarious.
canister. They drank right from the water and they died. So they couldn't pilot it out of there.
I love that.
The Afghanis get control of their helicopter. I thought that was
think
great,
that's
too.
part of the movie genius because the more I'm thinking about it, like I wasn't super entertained by the film. But when I think about, like, was it good storytelling? Like, yeah, like, right? So there's things to be learned, right? So he thinks, this is never going to come back to haunt me. Poisoning this well is going to be fine. And then later he's, like, starving, and he's like, I'm super thirsty. And he's like, I can't drink this water, and I killed my way out of here.
Yeah, that is interesting, right? They're the ones that poisoned it, and they literally came back to bite them because even though he was going to save the tank, their plan B failed because of his actions earlier, right? Yeah, I do like that. So as far as, which was so delicious in a way because it was like this guy, like let's be honest, he was just the scum of the earth, right? I mean, I hated the tank captain at the end of it, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, like I was like, can he sink any lower? Like the lines he would have where he's like, I outsmarted him, and I didn't study philosophy. Like, why was that such a great line? Like, I don't know. They called me Tank Boy. It was so funny.
I loved it.
And then
all I thought of was
scene-
today. The people we talk with today, and they try and argue with you about politics, and that's the type of crap they say, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm Tank Boy. Like, settle down there, freak. Okay. Yeah, I know, it's so funny, and I love too. Like there's a great scene where two of them are talking off. They're like, we got to do something about Commander. Like he blew away Samad. He doesn't trust any of us. Like he's gonna get us all killed. And then the Commander shows up like out of the tank. He's like, what are you guys talking about? Like it's like a horror movie. Like it's so creepy. Like he's like, what are you soldiers talking about? Like you trying to have a mutiny? You're trying to conspire against me?
It was like Disturbia vibes where the creepy neighbor just appears every time.
Yeah, he's always there listening. Like, what are you guys talking about? It's like, no,
Just
nothing.
in his kitchen talking to his mom. Holy shit.
Oh, I love it. Do you guys have any last minute thoughts you want to throw about this movie, The Beast of War?
There's I learned a new thing that Russians speak perfect English with no accents. I did not know that before this film.
Cameron was expecting Black Widow to come out of the tank, all right? So
I still
Cameron.
haven't seen that, so I need to watch that.
Don't. It's a waste of time. This movie's better than Black Widow, I'll tell you that much.
No, I think so.
And more
You
entertaining.
guys know Corridor Crew on YouTube?
Yeah, the ones that do the visual effects.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
VFX
Yeah.
artists. So you know how they redo films?
Yeah.
This to
punch 'em up.
me, I'm like, Jordan needs to remake this, but he needs to take all the English and make it Russian, and then people blow up with grenades. It'll make it a short film, but that, or he can just edit out the grenades and switch them out for rocks because they did about just as the same stuff.
I actually, Sebastian, I was thinking of like, if they made some more gruesome deaths, I would have loved that.
Jordan could fix this movie.
Punched it out, yeah. You could really remake this story. I mean, you could do, same setting or
I never
even
get
a different
tired of
setting.
like
This war story, yeah.
A man that's so driven and so in like he doesn't care. I mean, he'll let people die in his path. Like it's amazing. I can't believe how insane
It's
he is.
amazing. It's beautiful.
It is. I love people like this. Like
I do like the politics of war. I do enjoy that scene in every movie, and this was a great one where they're in the helicopter and they're ready to fly out of there, and they're like, all right, let's go. And he's like, get back in the tank, soldiers. And he's like, why can't we fly? He's like, because we're tankers. It's what we do. You're just like, yeah, man.
well, you know what I thought of too is, have you seen War Machine, Sebastian, with Brad Pitt?
War Machine.
It's on Netflix. Anyways, there's a scene where he's explaining to the people, the news people, he's like, I think it's like 1 - 1 = 2.
Oh,
and
I
people
know what
are
we're talking about. Okay.
yeah, and they're like, I don't understand that. And then he's explaining, if you kill one of these Afghanistan's people, you're not going to get 0, you're going to get 2, because when you kill them, their brothers will be angry, and then more people come.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I love that idea, because this movie, it showed that. It was like...
created more enemies as a result, right?
Yeah, because there was like the really bad people, like there were the bad guys that like wanted to, like they were killing people for their virgins or whatever. Then there
The
was...
timing of this film was impeccable. Well, we just pulled out of Afghanistan and literally the same thing. I'm like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it was so crazy that you mentioned that too, Sebastian. You're like, oh, like my perception of what's going on. It's like, guys, it's like it's been 20 years, and can you imagine growing up and having like Big Brother or like the United States in housing all this and kind of monitoring everything generally, and then we're completely gone. Like they're going right back to their old ways. Like they wasted no time. So you mentioned, the poor women being oppressed. I'm like, my heart is breaking for these poor women. I mean, they went the last 20 years. Imagine if you were born 20 years ago, right? It's like America occupied this place, and you have like, you're introduced to the Western civilization where you can be empowered, and then all of a sudden you're like, you're 20 years old, you're mine, like you're my wife now. Like it's terrifying. Like anyway, my heart is breaking for these people, and it is a very timely movie, I guess, in a way, it's tragically.
But I just love that the loss of that person, like it turned more people essentially against and created more enemies,
Yeah.
I just love that. It's such a
whole village of angry women to Cameron's
and
disbelief.
the angry brother, like he went out for revenge,
Yeah.
Like he didn't want to join the other people, but because of the loss of his brother, like it's kind of turned him against them. So
Jordan, you are now Khan. Congratulations. You've become Khan. You've been enlightened. You are Khan.
do we recommend it?
Do you guys recommend The Beast of War?
I think so. I mean,
I do not.
I recommend this movie. I was entertained by it. I was pleasantly surprised. Sometimes with the caveat, like I knew when the movie came out, I always have like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, this is a movie set in it was made in the 80s, so I'm like, it's gonna be this or that.
yeah, it's a bit slow.
I was pleasantly
but
surprised for an 80s film. Yeah.
I would recommend
I'll say it.
Fury over this.
No, this is way better.
I can't blanket recommend it at all. Like, so,
Yeah.
right? Like, if I'm talking to someone like Jordan, I know he's going to like it because it's a good film. Like, it's not super entertaining, but it's a good film. Like, it has a great story, and they did a great job telling that story.
But not
it's
enjoyable
not exactly.
watch. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there and I'm watching. I'm like, not invested. I don't really care. And I'm like, this is okay, great story, but thank you, no thank you.
Yeah, and that's you have to find the people who enjoy that type of stuff. That's the thing. That's why I almost never ever recommend Zodiac, is because Zodiac is one of those movies where it's not too enjoyable to watch, but it's a masterpiece of a film.
All I have to say to that, Cameron, is out of commission, become a pillbox. Out of ammo, become a bunker. Out of time, become heroes. You must be out of your fetching mind.
Yeah, when they fucking break his hand to get the grenade out of it, psychopath. Gosh dang. But she was so ready to blow everyone just sky high.
So happy too.
And he wasn't even gonna wait
He's
for
like,
someone to like
truly
come
doing
in
what
there.
he loves doing.
He was just gonna blow them up inside the tank. I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess you make it so they can't use the tank, but at least wait for someone to try to come in or something.
That was a big thing. Yeah, he didn't want it to get into their hands. That was the whole thing. His identity is wrapped
What I
up.
thought was interesting, why didn't they let him do it? Like, weren't they surrounded, burning alive, and they're about to get stoned to death by a bunch of people, right? And they
Yeah, I
don't
would
know
rather
that
get
there's
blown
a
up.
special code that if they get out of the tank, like, I surrender, like, they're going to be taken care of, right? I'd be like, yeah, pull that pin today, right now,
Oh yeah.
before they crawl in here, drag us out, and then stone me to death.
Right.
worse,
Or keep you alive for
just
worse. Yeah,
watch you
exactly.
cook to death
What
inside
movie is
your
that?
tank
That
oven.
the person crawls out. Oh, that's never mind. Sorry, that's Fury. Shia LaBeouf when he crawls out the bottom because everyone else is like ready to kill themselves, but then Shia LaBeouf like crawls out.
I don't remember him crawling out. I need to see that movie again. I haven't seen it since the
You
theater.
know,
So.
that's a pretty forgettable movie, Cameron.
Oh my gosh, you guys are such bro.
So we always end every movie podcast by sharing movies that we've seen lately and movies we're looking forward to. Sebastian, do you have any movies that you've seen lately?
Well, I just watched The Mummy the other day, so the fact that Samad guy was in it, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, there's not been a whole lot of films lately, so I've just been rewatching like old stuff.
Yeah, there's a bunch of fun stuff I'm excited for, though, coming in October. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited about the new Halloween movie.
Yes.
Oh, is there a new Halloween, like Mike Myers or whatever?
Yep.
Or Michael Myers? Is it Michael Myers? I never know which one's the comedic actor and which one's the murderer. Is it Mike Myers?
Mike Myers is the serial or the killer.
Is the killer. And Michael Myers is the actor.
And who's the dad in Mitchell's vs. the Machines time?
It's Danny McBride.
He's
does the voice.
producing the new Halloween movies. And the
Oh,
director is the guy who made Pineapple Express.
But that's kind of good for slasher films. That you need that like tongue-in-cheek humor.
I just rewatched Love and Monsters, and
Yeah.
I can't
Ooh.
recommend
What'd
it
you think?
enough. I
It's
want to
good,
see.
right?
I want to see a second one. I love that movie.
Yeah,
we
me too.
reviewed on the pod. That was a movie that I found and shared with the family. I'm pretty proud of that one. I loved it. I think it's a great movie, and I'd recommend that to everyone for sure.
Yeah, surprisingly good. I was not expecting that.
Well, I will say I watched Monster Hunter, which is a terrible movie. Yeah, you see that one? It's like both the movies are kind of the same premise, but one fundamentally works on every level, and one just absolutely does not work. I'm sorry, that poor Resident Evil girl. She keeps getting work, but like just like the Resident Evil movies, they're just so stupid. Like they're just so hollow. I don't know. They're lifeless.
I like
They're
the first Resident Evil movie.
mind-numbingly dumb. I literally was playing poker with the guys watching it in the background, and I'm like, this can't even entertain me like partially. I have to be playing a game while watching this movie. But Love and Monsters, I couldn't put it down. I watched it twice. Like I loved it. It's great, and you could tell by looking in their eyes. Your eyes, Sebastian. So, any movies you're looking forward to seeing?
Just the Halloween one and the Matrix 4. Duh.
Yeah, the Keanu Sans. Yeah, it's beautiful. Although I have to say, I'm a little worried from what I saw in the trailer.
No way.
It looks
Just a
fun.
little.
I think it'll be fun.
I just hope it's fun.
I think
That's
the
it.
big
Yeah.
picture is what they're going for here.
Yeah, I hope so, because I'm worried it's going to be the soft reboot. Like, hey, none of this ever happened. You know, the first 3 movies don't
No,
mean
because
anything. Let's
something
just
you gotta
start it over.
remember is all the humans for the past who knows how many hundreds of years were genetically created. Like, right? The machines made them. So the machines have the genetic code for Keanu himself. So why couldn't they just regrow the same people over and over again?
It's totally fair. Like I said, in keeping with the story, it works. My concern is like, will that have any bearing on like, okay, you've already done this one, right? See, you bring up an interesting question. I could see that being like grappling with, you've already done this once, or someone like you did this once before. You have to perform. And he's like, I'm nothing special, right? Like I kind of hope they could do a hero's journey like that. You know, I could see that. I'm just concerned. Like, it broke my heart to see like not Lawrence Fishburne like fighting Keanu in a dojo, and I'm like, the first one, right?
That's
Like,
because.
But he does blow it up with
he's
power. So
he's
I mean,
dead.
He
and now
died.
this is his reborn self, like the new
Oh yeah.
one, right? Like his DNA is being reused.
But they did. But the
they can
girl
still bring
died
back
too.
Lawrence Fishburne.
No, but the girl died too, didn't she? And
Yeah,
they brought her
Trinity,
back.
Everyone, yeah.
Well, right, because they
Trinity.
were all born from the Matrix, which means that the machines literally made them. Right? They're born as embryos in those sacs. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be super deep, and I think I'm stoked. It's going to be epic.
I'll just say I got the message already from the trailer. Is my point. Like you see Keanu popping a bunch of pills, and everyone's glued to their phones. I'm like, I mean, again, I'm just ready for the ham-fisted message, but I'm just hoping it's entertaining at least, because I already feel like I know what the message is. Like, guess what? Everyone today is living in the Matrix. So like, no doy. Like, take the red pill, take the blue pill. It's like, I don't know. We're all over medicating, and we're all addicted to our phones. Like, we're all living in the Matrix. We're willingly giving ourselves up to the Matrix.
Yeah, speak to
Maybe there's going to be
yourself.
something really fun to explore there. Yes, yeah. Hang on a second. I've been texting this whole time. So anyway, I'm worried is all I'm saying. I want to give that caveat because then when it turns out good, I'll be pleasantly surprised and admit that I was ever wrong. I just, was wrong from the beginning. But I am worried. So, but anyway, Sebastian, we end every podcast by sharing do you have like a social media site that you want people to stalk you on or look you up or something?
Not at all.
Not
Smart
at all.
man.
Good man.
Please leave
Good
me
man.
alone.
If you see me in the street, don't bother me. All right. Everybody, this has been Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Leave us an email, futuromovies@gmail.com. Leave us a 5-star review. Tell us, follow us, like us, share, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Check us out. Leave us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, all the different accounts. Check us out. Thank you so much, Nick, for the recommendation for the movie, The Beast of War. It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed talking about it. And this has been Futuro Hidden Movie Gems, signing out. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.